Hello viewer, the Nameless Scholar here. The Iron Warriors, led by Perturabo. They are the underdogs, the underappreciated trench diggers. Half the community either loves them or just finds them to be whiny man-children. Now, the latter have a point, especially with Perturabo's characterization being rather inconsistent. However, what if I told you that without Perturabo, the Siege of Terra would have been a one-sided battle where the traitors suffer a crushing defeat? That Perturabo almost single-handedly soloed the Siege of Terra. Prior to the siege, he has beaten Chaos Fulgrim to a bloody pulp and essentially told him that he will be commanding Fulgrim's legion even after Fulgrim takes away his immortality to become a demon prince. And here's what he said to him, which hit so hard. I have bitten my tongue and allowed you to bring my legion into this place. I have followed your lead in all things. I have listened to your tall tales and allowed you to set the pace of this expedition. That ends now. Your warriors have no discipline, monsters fight your battles, and you have allowed an entire vessel to be sacrificed in the name of vanity. But no more. From here onwards, I am in charge, and for the duration of this mission, your legion is mine to command. Your warriors will obey my orders. They will follow my lead, and they will do nothing except by my command. If you agree to that, then we will continue on into the Eye of Terror and finish this together. If you don't, then I will take my legion and leave you here. Do you understand? Another instance is when Perturabo brought Demon Angron to heal, essentially giving him a reality check that he's doomed to be a slave for all eternity. You are weak. You are a slave. You were born a slave. And a slave you remain. Here we see that even before the siege, Perturabo kept his brothers on a tight leash. This becomes especially prevalent during the siege proper though. Before the siege began, the Iron Warriors wore down the outer defenses of the solar system, only for the sons of Horus and the Emperor's children to warp straight up to Terra via sorcery, making Perturabo waste time and manpower. Perturabo wanted to orbitally bombard Terra, but Horus insisted that the Emperor had to be slain in person. The only credit I will give to Horus is that maybe all of Terra, not just the Imperial Palace, had void shields. So Perturabo found himself in a traditional siege where he was stuck with idiots who he had to deal with. The Emperor's children who cared about nothing but to pursue their hedonistic whims, the World Eaters who only wanted to kill, tactics be damned, the Death Guard which were just rotting husks of their former selves, no different than the monsters of the warp, while being at half strength, and the Thousand Sons who were not only a shell of their former selves, but Magnus was unreliable at best. While the Imperial Fists stuck to their doctrine of fortification and defense, Perturabo exploited this rigidity to take Lionsgate spaceport to not only cut off reinforcements for the Loyalists, but also to consolidate the gain of the traitor legions. Perturabo used the World Eaters and the Emperor's children as backup, keeping them on a very tight leash as always, for had he not, the Emperor's children might not even have showed up as they got bored and left halfway through the battle. Imagine if Perturabo had given them much more leeway. But it was because he didn't give them leeway that allowed them to overwhelm the Loyalist forces. After Perturabo had taken Lionsgate spaceport, at the Battle of the Saturnine Wall, both Dorn and Perturabo had noticed a weakness at the wall due to the orbital bombardment done by the traitors. Hoping that Perturabo didn't notice it, Dorn had planned to use it against him. But Perturabo did notice the fault and was planning to use it as his last ace in the hole. Were it not for the support of the Blood Angels and the White Scars, the Imperial Fists would have lost against Perturabo because they are tactically inflexible, as only with those two were the Loyalist forces able to gain a Pyrrhic victory. But that Pyrrhic victory didn't last anyway. the Saturnine wall was breached, and Perturabo was to enter the next stage of the siege. He was bringing in reserve forces from his and other legions, planning to overwhelm the Loyalist forces through sheer numbers. Horus summoned him to the Vengeful Spirit. He explained to the Lord of Iron that he was not to follow through with his plan, and instead redirect all his forces, including the Titans, to the Mercury Wall, and that Mortarion was to do his job. When Perturabo asked why, Horus essentially replied with, "Because I said so." This was the straw that broke the camel's back. He got duped twice now, once in the beginning and now. He had to contend with complete and utter idiots who knew no tactics, only slaughter. Particularly the Emperor's children, World Eaters, Death Guard, and Thousand Sons. The only thing he got from the Sons of Horus was that they covered his back from the Raven Guard, while the Alpha Legion did nothing for him, to the point they essentially went incommunicado after their massive loss at Pluto. With the other legions using demons to support them, Perturabo declared to his sons that the cause he fought for didn't exist and had never existed. That Horus and his friends would much rather have monsters fight their battle for them, that no honor or glory could be had in this battle. He didn't fail the traitor cause. The traitor cause had failed him, and he would not be a tool to be used and abused like the Emperor had done to him ever again. So he took his sons and left Terra. Even without the Iron Warriors, the traitors were able to push the Loyalists to the innermost defenses of the palace due to the staticness of the Loyalist forces, thanks to the Imperial Fists. Jagatai Khan had grown tired of turtling and launched a counterattack to retake Lion's Gate for the Dark Angels and the Ultramarines to land on, and it worked. When Lion's Gate was retaken, Perturabo's absence had come to take its toll. The traitor side was nothing more than an uncoordinated horde that couldn't even exploit the most fatal breaches properly. Even the Emperor's children and the Night Lords had largely abandoned the siege, the former due to getting bored, and the latter because they realized that Perturabo was right. With the banishment of Mortarion by Jagatai Khan, Angron by Sanguinius, and Magnus the Red by Vulcan, afterwards, the traitor legions were on the back foot as much as the Loyalists were. Horus knew that had he held out longer, the Ultramarines and the Dark Angels would come to finish him off, and the rest is history. It's why he lowered the defenses of the Vengeful Spirit and allowed a small force led by the Emperor to teleport to it. Had Perturabo been a Loyalist, the traitors would have lost very quickly. Maybe Horus's gambit could have still worked, or it wouldn't have and the Emperor would have still been alive, who knows. Had Horus left Perturabo to his devices, and was he able to continue the way that he needed? Regardless of what would happen, it would give much more time for Horus to wait it out and wear down the Loyalist forces through sheer numbers and starve them out of the war. Horus could have won. But through his own egomania, and because he was no better than the Emperor, he lost the only asset that kept the traitors in one piece, and that was Perturabo, the Hammer of Olympia, and his sons that made the siege of Terra as devastating as it was. After Perturabo had left, the remaining traitors were only using what Perturabo had left behind, and when that no longer became useful and adaptation was required, the traitors found themselves on the back foot against the scattered Loyalists, with many breaches in their defenses, all because Horus could not keep Perturabo by his side due to his own arrogance. It cost him the siege. And Perturabo, he was for once able to say no to being used like a tool and left on his own accord, proudly becoming a pariah amongst the traitor legions, just like the Night Lords had afterwards. I am the Nameless Scholar, and Iron within, Iron without.